Is that Facebook?
You probably have to have a title in. Did you have the title?
Yep, I have everything there.
It won't let you go.
It will not keep the stream key. It says persistent stream key. I don't know why it keeps getting messed up.
Ralph, can you hear me?
I can.
Hey, sorry I haven't gotten back with you on that theology tap room or whatever we were talking about.
Theology on tap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll try to do something. I'll try to pull something together here. We're still working on trying to get the whole room studio done at the house, but I'll try to just see if there's a night where we can pull something together just to play with it. So I'll get back with you.
Okay, and no worries. I've been like super busy and stuff too. Like it's not all on you. I haven't asked you about it either. So
Okay, sounds good. We're gonna do a little Jesus is just all right.
Great tune.
He sure is.
All right, Brian.
All right, little Doobie Brother action there. Jesus is just all right. This is Friday, the 23rd of October. We are cruising through this 2021 year, almost finally accomplished into 2022, and Jesus should be back around 2025, I've heard.
Is that
So,
what your sources say?
that's what my sources say, and if not, we're in trouble in 2029 because there is some kind of large asteroid headed for the Earth, and so we're going to be in big trouble if we don't get out of here soon.
I did see that. I have seen that.
Yeah.
It caught our scientists off guard.
Yes, off guard.
Off guard.
Because they haven't been watching anything from Mount Graham or any other place in the
Forever.
observatories. Yeah. So, this is Uneducated. Don't forget, Acts chapter 4, verse 12. If you ever want to know why the show is called Uneducated, Jesus had some followers, and they were taken before the Sanhedrin after he had resurrected. And the Pharisees and the religious leaders, they saw these men as uneducated men, but they recognized something about them. And what they recognized is that they had been with Jesus. And so, as uneducated people, we say that you don't have to be you don't have to be educated. You just have to be sincere about wanting to find the truth, and Jesus will reveal Himself to you as the way, the truth, and the life. So here we are today, gentlemen. We have a guest with us today. He's been on the show before, but Jim Eichenberger's here. Jim, thanks for being with us today.
Hello.
Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, good.
Welcome.
Good. And then Ralph is with us from San Diego.
San Diego.
Yeah.
He's froze up.
Again?
He's already froze up.
Seriously?
I went to full screen mode and...
That's a shame.
Ralph, are you still with us?
He's not.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Keep going.
Your face is froze.
I think it's my computer. It's literally 12 years old.
Oh,
There
there
you
you
are.
are. You're back.
You're
okay.
back.
And so Ralph is with us from San Diego. Ralph, how's the weather in San Diego?
It's beautiful and sunny.
Nice.
San Diego.
And I think that's the way it always is there, at least until it drops off into the ocean.
Yeah, so you got like May gray and June gloom, but other than that, it's 76 and sunny.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Very nice. All right. And we are in Iowa ourselves.
We're in Iowa
Yeah.
now? I don't like Iowa. The people there are strange.
Yeah.
They are strange. You're not from Iowa, are you, Jim?
Pardon?
You're not from Iowa, are you?
No.
Okay.
That's good.
Cleveland.
Perfect. Clevelanders are perfect.
Cleveland boy. Did you grow up in the streets, the city of Cleveland, like?
I started out in downtown.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
get-
we moved out to Euclid after that.
Okay.
So,
Were you involved in any gangs or anything?
no.
No?
Were there gangs in Cleveland?
Oh yeah, there had to have been, right?
Not in the 30s and early 40s.
Just mobsters.
Was there mafia?
Not that I know of. I
See,
was,
the Polish could never get it together.
No,
You can't have Polish mafia. That's too much organization.
that's a lot.
Oh, they're just good at making sausages.
Jim, you're not. Jim, are you Polish?
German.
German.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Switzerland, actually.
Okay. All right. So you got some Swiss.
Schweitzer.
Nice. Very good. Very good. Well, today we're going to travel down. We're going to start to travel down the Jesus road, and that's one of the reasons for the.
We're gonna
song.
start.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a while. We could talk about Jesus forever.
We could.
I mean,
That's what I'm saying. We've been doing that for a while. We're
Yeah.
not gonna start.
Okay. Well,
We're in the middle of talking.
we're in the
about
middle of it,
Jesus.
but we're going to get specific today in the sense that I think some of the claims of Jesus have not just recently, but for a while, they've been trying to be debunked. People are trying to be really critical of the text and the scriptures on who Jesus really is or was. And so I thought maybe we would just take a closer look at the person, the man, the myth of Jesus. And there was a movie called The Man, the Myth, but that was Bruce Lee. That was about Bruce Lee.
Oh heavens!
But we're gonna call this The Man, the Myth, I guess. And this is Jesus that we're gonna talk about. So I thought today maybe we would start maybe just looking at his beginnings, which are ancient. They go all the way back before time began. And one of the reasons I want to do that is because in 2007, and still today, there is a strong leaning. Peter, is his name Johnson? I think it's Peter Johnson. He did a documentary called Zeitgeist. And Zeitgeist was put out, I think it was in 2007 it was put out, and it literally was an attack on Christ and who he was and his deity.
Well,
And
in
so-
the whole biblical history.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he lists like several different mythological characters throughout the documentary and tries to prove that they all had similar beginnings like Jesus. They were born on a certain date, which he always says December 25th, which is debunked because nobody believes, no good scholar believes
Just
that
the
Jesus was
Catholics.
born. Yeah, maybe Catholics believe that he was born on December
dirty
25th,
Catholics.
but we don't believe that he was born on December 25th, so that's debunked right away. But then they say that a lot of these mythological beings were also born of a virgin. So, for instance, I'll just throw one out, like Horus,
Horus
who is
comes
the
to mind.
son of Osiris and Isis. And Osiris, his brother Set, actually murdered him, cut his body into pieces. His wife later, Isis, she went and had some of her servants search for his body parts, found his
Phallus.
his main body part. She reanimated it, had sexual intercourse with it, and that's how Horus was supposedly conceived. Now, that is not a virgin birth, obviously.
No.
It might be miraculous if that really happened, but it's definitely not a virgin birth. And then, of course, there's stories of him dying and resurrecting, which if you go back and you look at the ancient texts, there is no good evidence to show that he resurrected from the dead, Horus himself. But I want to go back to the birth part today, and I just want to talk about the idea of birth, because even Buddha, there are some stories that say that Buddha was born of a virgin, and the way they talk about it is that his mother, who was actually married, she was already married to her husband, so I don't know how they figure she was a virgin, but the story was that she was visited by an elephant, and one of the tusks of the elephant entered her, and she conceived Buddha.
You ever notice these stories are like perverted?
They are perverted. They're all just really strange.
Which
Yeah.
is
Very
just,
strange.
well, it's a hallmark of Satan.
Right. Because nothing in the scriptures tells us that God had any kind of sexual, intimate relation with Mary,
Yeah.
other than of their spirit, loving her as God would love people. But so let's just go back to the origination of Christ. Let's just throw this out. Where do you guys see Christ first appear in the scriptures or in time, or how do we understand where Christ even came from scripturally?
Genesis.
Okay, Genesis is your first one. Ralph, you want to throw out where we're at in Genesis, and we can just kind of play with that?
Well, when it's talking about the creation of the world, and it says "let us," there's a lot of debate on what the "us" is, but I think it's a clear picture of the Trinity that includes Jesus.
Okay. All right. But he's not specifically referenced there, right?
Specifically, no.
Okay. All right.
But there's a lot of images of Christ in the Old Testament where he's not specifically named
Correct.
until
Correct.
you get up to like Daniel with the Son of Man.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. Jim, you got any thoughts about earlier ideas?
In John 1, in the beginning was the Word,
Mm-hmm.
and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Yeah.
So, when he created, he said, "Let there be light,"
Mm-hmm.
and of course the Word is light.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think he was with God right from the very beginning, and
Yes.
and was part of. We see him as a unity of three.
Right.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit,
Right.
and all three of them seem to be at the very beginning of
Right.
the scripture. Genesis 1.
Right. Yeah, and in Genesis 1, it clearly says that in the beginning, God, Elohim, which could be a plural,
That's right.
a plurality of persons, but doesn't mean we believe in many gods, but a plurality of persons there. But God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form, void and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So we have at least the Spirit there as well as God himself. Any other thoughts? I'm just turning us to Colossians chapter 1, and I would try to quote it, but I don't want to misquote it or mess it up here. But if you start in verse 13, this is what Paul writes. For he rescued us from the domain of darkness and transferred us into the kingdom of his beloved Son, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. Verse 15, he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation, for by him all things were created, both in heaven and on the earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions, rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. So Paul tells us clearly there that Jesus was not only at creation, but he created everything.
Right.
He was the creator, or is the creator. Any other thoughts of his early beginnings there? So then we would all conclude then that Jesus Christ is eternal as God. So Jesus as God is eternal. He never had a beginning or an end. Yes? Everybody there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So this makes him different than Horus or Buddha or any other prophet that ever lived. There is no prophet or anyone that claims this, that they were eternal. But Jesus has been claimed to be eternal. So that makes him very exclusive. I mean, there's obviously something special about him. He's unique. That's the word begotten can also be kind of used as this unique one, the only begotten. All right? So any other thoughts of his early beginnings and the early things that you see him show up as, or things you start to see early on? Ralph, you shared Genesis where the Trinity is kind of mentioned there, let us, and so he's obviously in the mix there. What else do you guys see? Anything?
I mean, I was going to say, I definitely think that there are two schools of thought on that. But anyway, I think it's a weak argument for another case. I don't want to get into it. But there's also different parts in the Old Testament where they have images of Christ, and there's a lot of debate whether it was actually Christ or just a picture of Christ. But like I was saying before, Daniel is the place I can think of where they name him by name. They have Daniel has the prophecy of the Son of Man.
Right. Okay. Well,
That like pairs really well with like Revelation 13. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep. So I just so I'll throw out too, even in Genesis chapter 3 at the fall, when he curses the serpent and he tells the serpent that he was going to put hostility between you and the woman. This is verse 15, and between your seed and her seed. And then everything changes. All of a sudden now it's not seed, it goes to a personal pronoun, he. And it says, he shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel. And scholars believe, and if you look at this, you see that eventually through this seed will come one And even Paul talks about this in Romans, that will crush the head of the serpent. So the idea here is it goes all the way back to Genesis 15, that this promised one would come. And this is Jesus who would come in the flesh, prophesied about all the way back in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. But I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, but I just want to take you to Genesis chapter 5. And in Genesis chapter 5, in the genealogy of Seth, we have in verse 28, it says that Lamech lived 182 years and became the father of a son. And he called his name Noah, saying, this one will give us rest. I think that's key. Will give us rest from our work and from the toil of our hands, arising from the ground which the Lord has cursed. I think it's interesting, number one, that creation was feeling the heavy weight of the curse, that they were looking for a certain person to give them rest from this curse. But I think what's even more profound here is that this idea of rest, when Jesus came, it's something he spoke of quite often, the idea that he would give us rest. The author of Hebrews talks about this concept of rest in the Sabbath rest, and Jesus being the fulfillment of that rest. So I think Noah is a type of Christ in the sense that he came and was prophesied that he would come to give them rest, but ultimately it would be through his seed eventually that one would truly come. That's the person of Jesus to give us rest. Mm-hmm. And again, this is unique. This is going, I mean, these are, when we start to look at these things, guys, these are the things I think that people in the world are hungry for, because they need to know the exclusivity of Jesus, in the sense that Jesus is unique. There is no one like Jesus. Mm-hmm. Absolutely no one in history that has ever been like Jesus. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, he was both God and man.
Yes, right. Yep. And there is no one that has ever even claimed to be both God and man that I know of. This is a very unique union of flesh and spirit.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think he came to preach and teach and save the lost, not bring social justice.
You're right. He did. He did. You're
just
right.
Just because he slept at people's houses that he borrowed and in tents just made him humble.
Right.
Not a social justice warrior.
Right. And let's face it, at the end of the day, he did work. Let's just go back. He did work, but at the end of the day,
he's obviously is a carpenter, son of a carpenter, so he's a carpenter.
Right. At the end of the day, he was just trusting the Father to provide for him.
Yeah.
And the Father used people.
He was living as an example of how we should live.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't doubt for a second that Jesus did not work hard throughout the day. I mean, he was earning his keep.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, there were times where he didn't even hardly get any sleep because he was healing people.
Go ahead, Ralph.
I was going to say, you don't think that Jesus had anything to do with social justice at all?
No. Well,
I don't think that was his mission.
Not in the modern definition, no.
I don't think that was his mission, but he came to empower people, like, especially when you read like the New Testament in the context of the Middle Eastern times. Like, he was very pro woman, like giving them way more equality than they had at that time. Like, he was, I don't know. I know where you're going with it, because I'm more along the lines as you are with the whole social justice movement and everything like that. But I think Christ came as a game changer to empower those who weren't empowered, for sure.
But empower them to do what, though? Here's the question. Empower them to be a woman or to be a man?
No, that's the thing. He came to empower them in the kingdom and to bring them into the kingdom. And the kingdom is not of this world, so it could have nothing to do with this world. Does that make sense?
Right.
And it begins,
I agree, but
it begins with, we were all dead in our trespasses and sin, and he made us alive. I think that's really the focus,
right?
That he brought the word of life to us because we were dead.
Right.
So
I think he cared. I don't think he could have cared less his stature in this world. And so why would he try to empower somebody to be empowered in this world? Why would that be his purpose?
Yeah.
So
Ralph, go ahead, because you were going to say something, Ralph.
it's not necessarily. Yeah, it's not necessarily like I'm not talking like for any other reason than religion, but like look at the Samaritan, or like there's so many different stories where there was someone who was being cast out by the entire community of so-called believers, the Jews at the time, right? And God is telling them, no, you can still come to me. Like he's empowering those people that were cast out. It's religious in nature, but it had like social effects because they were cast out socially and they didn't feel like they could come to Jesus because of it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, and I agree that he came for to equalize the playing ground or whatever, to show that everyone was equal, which I think this country was founded on this idea of equality, right? That
Yeah,
every man is equal. But like it's interesting, like when you see Paul speaking about the whole slave master thing, Paul doesn't say if you're a slave, you need to get out of there because you God doesn't want you to be a slave. He works with us right in our culture. So that's why I don't think God really ever intended to try to change the culture or the social scene or the political realm. I don't think that was God's purpose. God's purpose was in the midst of the mess to call a people to himself that would live in a way that would be ambassadors and witnesses to call more people into his kingdom. And I think when he called the women, he didn't call them to empower them to have women's rights, because in that culture they still didn't have rights, but they were empowered by Christ in the kingdom to be witnesses to love.
That was what I was saying.
And that's what Matt was saying.
Yeah, we in the kingdom, that's what he's like. He could care. It's how we're supposed to live here.
Right.
We're supposed to live here humbly, quietly, not care about our stature, not care if we get punched in the face in his name. Mm-hmm. That's not empowering.
Right.
As far as the earth is concerned.
Right.
That's meek and weak.
Yeah.
We're to be meek and weak.
Right. Ralph, you respond to that?
No, actually, I think I'm on the same page more than I'm not with you guys.
Yeah.
I'm maybe
I
just
didn't
not
mean
articulating
to, and
as
I didn't
well.
mean to make a giant train derail.
No, and I think we are on the same
I'm used
page.
to that, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's true.
I just think, like, here's the thing with Jesus, like what we're talking about today is that Jesus gets hijacked, and he's been hijacked by the social justice warriors. He's been hijacked by the Black Lives Matter. He's been hijacked by all these people as if he came to somehow liberate people in this world from their class or whatever it is. But Jesus, like Jim said, Jesus came to make dead people alive. That's what Jesus came to do.
Right.
So
and really, I think they lost track of the spiritual end of it.
yeah,
They were more physical,
right.
and really, it's a spiritual. That's where eternity is. It's in the spirit.
Right,
So,
right.
I think he really wanted people to recognize that there's a spiritual part that's
Right.
very important.
Right, right. Well, let me throw this question out. Say, for instance, we were living in a world where women still were not allowed to vote. But say, for instance, men were serious about following Christ and women were serious about following Christ. Would it matter?
I don't think so.
It's just a thought to throw out there. I'm not sure that women would be told they couldn't vote in that kind of a kingdom or a system, but if that were the case, would it even matter?
It didn't matter because women didn't have any rights until women's suffrage in the 20s on this planet. Like, women having a say in being who they are is a 100-year-old idea at best right now. Mm-hmm. That I know of. I mean,
right.
I'm sure there's an African tribe in Zambia a long time ago that was all women, like the movie Black Panther. But, I mean, as an idea, we're living in the first country in 5,000 years to have as much freedom as we do, mm-hmm. and as much plenty as we have had. And so much so that women were able to then attain an equality with men like none other in history.
Right.
All people have the right here at this point. We're swallowing people over our borders and giving them that right.
Right.
There's no other nation in the world in history that did this.
Yeah.
It's going to bring us down, but
And-
that's
and-
another topic.
And can I just throw out this idea too? The minute people are empowered in the flesh, all of a sudden it leads to corruption.
It does. That's right. It does.
I mean, it's different to be empowered in the spirit, but like, I mean, you think about it, what, other than the fact that women have been liberated in the sense that they can vote and they're in the workforce and they're still fighting for equal wages and those kind of things. I get all that stuff and I'm for that. I don't have a problem with that. But ultimately, I mean, what has the women's right movement actually done to help women become women who are after God's heart? I don't think that movement has done anything for that. I think ultimately it's the church that leads that charge. And with that, we have silence.
Sorry. I'm responding to a text or
Okay.
a call. Someone tried to call me. My bad.
All
So we should get back on our original topic.
Well, we're talking about Jesus because ultimately he is the one who liberates, and so that's fine. But I was just looking at his early beginnings, and let's peruse around a little bit in this Daniel passage that you were talking about, Ralph. Daniel chapter 9, you said, I think.
No, I think it's in 6
7.
or 7.
7, yeah. The Son of Man, Ancient of Days, and the Son of Man. Daniel 7, yeah. So let's just take a look at that. Is it Daniel in the Old Testament? Anybody?
Yes.
I can't seem to find it today.
It's right after Ezekiel and before Hosea.
There you go.
Hosea. Well, that's good too because Jim has something to share with Hosea too, which we're going to get to here in just a minute. But Daniel 7. So we have the reference to the Ancient of Days and his reign in verses 9 through 11 or 12. And then in verse 13, he says, I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was coming. And he came up to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him. And to him was given dominion, glory, and a kingdom, that all the peoples, nations, and men of every language might serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which will not pass away, and his kingdom is one which will not be destroyed.
And we're saying this is evidence of Jesus before Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Daniel's prophecy, the one that would come, the Son of Man, the Messiah. That's why the Pharisees got so ticked off when Jesus said, and you will see the Son of Man coming at the right hand, or in the clouds. You will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds. And when they heard that, they tore their clothes because they knew what he was speaking of. And it goes right back to this Daniel passage. So that's why they were so ticked up, and that's ticked off, and that's why they actually crucified him eventually because of his blasphemy, because of that. Okay, so that's a good reference. So let's just go back up to verse 9, the Ancient of Days. He says, I kept looking until thrones were set up, which is interesting. Not just a throne, but thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. So there's more than one throne. And yet the Ancient of Days took his seat on one of the thrones. It says his vesture was like white snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was his throne was a blaze of flames. Its wheels were burning fire. A river of fire was flowing and coming. So this here almost sounds like the same throne picture of Ezekiel chapter 1, when Ezekiel sees this vision of a throne coming down. Some people try to say it's ancient aliens and, like certain types of UFO type thing, but it seems to be throne language. But here's what I find interesting. His description, his vesture white as snow and his hair like pure wool, that if you go to John's description of the voice that was speaking to him, which is Jesus, the voice that's speaking to him in Revelation chapter 1, I think it is. It's the same description. Very similar description.
That's right.
So is Jesus also the Ancient of Days? Obviously as God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, they are co-equal. They all share in these things. Yes, they have different roles.
Well, this is where the hard explanation comes in. Like, if you're trying to explain the Trinity to a new believer, this is the hard thing.
Even an old believer.
Right. It's like trying to explain infinicy. Mm-hmm. We have because we're bound by time, we have no clue.
Right.
Of infinicy. Right. And so,
Yeah.
It becomes a concept that we have to have faith and understand, but we're not going to understand it.
Right.
So I think if you're reading Daniel 7, it's actually really well paired with Revelation 13, and they both add clarity to each other. And if you're looking in that context, I believe that the Ancient of Days in this instance is talking about God the Father, because when you start getting into Revelation 13, you see the Ancient of Days God, ending the Antichrist and the 10-horned beast or whatever, and then it gets handed over to Jesus to reign.
Okay, Jim, do you have any thoughts on that? Because Jim, we were talking earlier about this section too, right? Is this the section you were talking about?
No, it was Daniel 9.
Daniel 9.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe we can get to that.
And that was that's basically when the angel Gabriel came to Daniel when he was praying with an answer, and he basically said that there were 77s of years until the Messiah would come. So that really is an identification. And if you look at the year or the 77, which is 490.
Right.
And the time when the what would you call it? They made a pact to go out and rebuild the city of Jerusalem.
Okay.
The years line up.
That's with Ezra and Nehemiah, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
So that really, even if you're plus or minus 50 years or so, there was nobody at that time that I can recall that was looked at as the Messiah coming.
Right.
So to me, that really identifies when and who.
Right.
Because the angel Gabriel said, this 400 and actually it's 483 years when the Messiah would show up.
Okay.
And that really, who else in history showed up?
Right.
It was Jesus.
Right.
So that was what I was thinking of, to substantiate the fact that he's the one that is the Messiah, according to the angel Gabriel.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why I want to have this discussion, and I'd like to have it for as long as we want to have it. But the person of Jesus, there again, I'll just say this again: there is no one like him. There is no prophetic words uttered about other people like there is about Jesus. I mean, just prophecy after prophecy after prophecy, and then he comes and fulfills it all. Not just close. I mean, he fulfills it like exact. And so I just think it's important that we walk through this, because we are living in a day where slowly but surely, not only the Bible is starting to be criticized more and more, but the person of Jesus is really starting to be seen as just another. I mean, I had some young kids in here on Saturday, and we did a live podcast stream. And one of the girls, my niece, she asked the question, well, how do we know that Jesus isn't just some kind of hyped up prophet? That's how she said it, hyped up. Now, she's a freshman in high school, very brilliant mind. All the girls here and the kids here had brilliant minds. But for them to be asking questions like that tells you that the world that they're living in,
it fed them that.
Yeah, has been feeding them that.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't just think that up. Like, and granted, they admit the fact that they don't read their Bible a whole lot.
Yeah.
Which I'd like to see that happen more for them. But young people, older people, there is a real fight on for the person of Jesus, and I think the church needs to stand up and let people know who Jesus truly is. Any other thoughts on that Daniel 7 passage or anything else? Or that Daniel 9 passage? Okay, then I'm going to ask Jim, do you want to take us through Hosea a little bit?
Okay.
And because you said you had some stuff there about Christ in Hosea, right?
Yeah, that's I've got a little thing that I've wrote here. In Hosea 11:1, we're told, "When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son." And that's a reference to Genesis chapter 4, or Exodus, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Exodus chapter 4. And I'll just read that. Verse 22, I think. And this is God speaking to Moses. "Then you shall say to Pharaoh, Thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, let my son go, that he may serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, indeed, I will kill your son, your firstborn." So it's quite obvious that Israel is his firstborn.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that's what Hosea is quoting, basically. We are told, when Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son, which is referring to God's natural children in Isaac,
Right.
which were captive in Egypt at the time.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now there's another interesting, and you don't have to turn to this, but it's in Psalm 80, verse 8. It says, God called Israel his vine that he brought out of Egypt.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's also in Jeremiah 2:21.
Okay.
It talks about his vine. So God is, or Israel is not only God's son, but he's also his vine.
That's John 15 and...
Well, yeah, we haven't got there yet.
Okay,
though.
all right, we're getting there. Okay, all right.
Okay. Now, the Exodus was fulfilled roughly in 1500 BC, give or take, okay?
Okay.
Depending on how you look at that. Okay, now, if we turn to the New Testament, in Matthew chapter 2, verses 13 to 15, and we're told, now when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared as Joseph, or to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I bring you word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night, departed for Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the Lord through the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt I called my son. Now notice that Matthew reinterprets Israel, my son, in Hosea 11:1, referring to God's natural children in Isaac to mean Jesus.
Yeah.
Now, isn't that interesting?
Very interesting.
Okay. In Matthew 3:17, at Jesus' baptism, God calls out of heaven, This is my beloved Son. And in John 15:1, Jesus states, I am the true vine, and you who abide in me, of course, are the branches. So Jesus is truly the fulfillment of all that natural Israel prefigured.
Wow.
He is the true spiritual Israel, and through faith in him, we who believe are all God's spiritual children and part of the Israel of God in Christ Jesus.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
So,
yeah. Did you say that was Jeremiah 2 where he's called the vine?
that's in Jeremiah 2:21.
2:21.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And also Psalm 80, verse 8.
Okay.
Okay, that's really...
Jeremiah 2. Matt, can you throw me that pen? So Jeremiah 2 and Psalm 80. All right. Boys, you wanna comment on any of that?
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting how Matthew reinterprets.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that was...
So which prophet do you think he's quoting? Do you think he's quoting Hosea, or do you think he's quoting Moses in Exodus?
Well, I think he's quoting Hosea.
Okay.
If you look, if you read Hosea,
Yeah.
Hosea says, when Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son.
Yeah.
See, so it's really, he's quoting
Right.
Exodus 4 there.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So
again, we talked about his pre-existence a little bit, but even at his birth, we've got prophecy with prophecy showing that when he showed up, he was the fulfillment of what the prophets were speaking of all the way back.
exactly.
Interesting.
And like you pointed out in Genesis, right,
Right.
he's the one that is going to bruise the
Yeah, the head.
head of
Yeah.
the serpent.
Right.
So before we move off of his pre-existence altogether,
Yeah.
are you guys familiar with the Christological implication of the term angel of the Lord in the Old Testament? Have you guys heard anything about that? Or
Yeah, but why don't you share some of that with us?
so yeah, I was just kind of curious on your thoughts about it. So excuse me. So a lot of people believe that when in the Old Testament they talk specifically about the angel of the Lord, that they're actually talking about Jesus Christ and not just some random angel. A lot of people don't realize that angel is not just like a person. So angel is the term messenger, right? It's malach, which is the Old Hebrew. And when they're saying angel of the Lord, it's a specific one, which a lot of people attribute to Jesus, right? Even when you read Genesis, let me find it. I have it up here on my logos. Oops. When you read Genesis chapter 16, and you're reading about, Sarah and Abraham and Hagar, it talks about the angel of the Lord coming and, going to meet Hagar's, or it's down by the well or something. It's in here.
Yeah.
But what I'm looking at specifically is after he meets with her, she calls him Lord, like Lord, all capitalized, Yahweh. And she's specifically mentioning him as the angel of the Lord. So unless she's messed up, that would attribute it pretty well. You know what I'm talking about in 1613? Yeah. So I guess I was just asking your guys' opinion on that.
I'm kind of just listening.
Oh. Have you heard that before, Matt, or no?
No, I haven't. And it was a lot to take in. It's interesting. That's about all I can say about without sounding like an idiot. Okay. You just disappeared. Where'd you go?
I'm here.
Okay.
I had to refresh my video.
I also, full disclosure, have a couple customers texting and emailing me, and I'm trying to make it seem as though I'm working today, but yet here talking on the computer. So I am slightly distracted.
We were talking about Genesis 16.
Yeah. Okay.
where maybe you could bring that up again.
Yeah, verse 13.
13.
So, yeah, that's the specific passage
Yeah.
where she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, referring to the angel of the Lord, which, that is Jesus, it would make sense why she called him Lord.
You are the God that sees.
Mm-hmm.
So, that
Yeah.
a lot, or look at that as Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the better ones that shows, Christ as this angel of the Lord. But like if you look throughout the Old Testament, there's 214 usages of the angel of the Lord specifically, rather than just an angel. Or
Mm-hmm. Well,
a lot of people. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I won't be able to tell you the reference. I think it's in Judges, maybe chapter 4, but it's where Noah and his wife see God concerning their son Samson, and they talk about him as the angel of the Lord, and then afterwards he says, "Man, they say it's amazing that we've." And I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but it's amazing that we've seen God and we're still alive.
Yeah.
And yet,
Judges 13.
Judges 13. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, these references are amazing. And 214, you said, total in the Old Testament, angel of the Lord?
Yes.
Yeah. And so this is the pre-incarnate, at least what many scholars believe is the pre-incarnate Christ, right?
Yeah, so I tend to take everything with a grain of salt, but I think there are some verses like this one and the one in Judges, and then there's one in Isaiah that use the word like Redeemer, that you can't say it's anything other than Christ. Like will I say all 214 are? I don't know, because I haven't actually done the study to look at every single one.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that the New Testament, even, it has many different verses in it where it says, oh, this is he's the one who was spoken of in the Old Testament, or you know what I mean, like he's the promised one. And I don't think it's just the prophecies. I think it's images like this where Christ is shown throughout the whole Bible, and I think the Old Testament is overlooked a lot for Christ, and this is kind of the reason I'm bringing it up.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe we can just kind of camp here for the next 10 or 15 minutes because we're about out of time today. But here would be my thought. If we just stopped here in Genesis chapter 16, and then next week and the week after, we can kind of look more specifically at some of Christ's words and maybe even more of the prophecies that surround him. But looking at his pre-existent life and the prophecies about him, and you see this passage here in chapter 16. So you have Hagar, who is a slave or a servant of Sarah's. She has been literally forced. I mean, I don't know so much as we would say raped, but she has been forced by her master to have sex with her so that they can somehow help God fulfill the promised seed.
And when you say master, it was Sarah, right?
Well, Sarah was over her. I mean, technically Abraham would have been her master, but she would have been Sarah's servant.
Wasn't Sarah the one that said, like, I can have babies?
Yes.
You go be with my husband.
Yep,
Right.
she did. Yeah, she did. Yeah,
That's
you're
right.
I just
exactly
want
right.
to make sure we
Yeah.
understand the women did this again.
You're exactly
Yeah.
right. Now I have. Yeah, you're right.
That's
And,
good.
Matter of fact, that's why Abraham gets in trouble, because he listened to his wife.
Yeah.
Again, and just like if you go back to the garden, Adam got in trouble because he listened to Eve.
Yeah.
That's why he got in trouble. So I don't think we should
There's
ever.
a subtle. I think we have a Friday conversation out of that alone.
It is.
We'll
yeah.
move on.
Yes, we'll move on. But getting back to this, okay, so Hagar here has really, she's just been who she is. She's a servant, so
That's
she's just playing her
And
role.
she did what her master, if you will,
Yes, correct.
told her to do.
Told her to do, and she becomes pregnant, and maybe she does. I mean, it appears according to the scriptures, because Sarah gets upset with her. Maybe she is kind of doting a little bit and flaunting this. I'm pregnant and you're not, in her face. But then again, Sarah, she was just kind of spiteful about the whole thing, so we don't really know what the whole thing happened. But so Abraham gives Sarah the opportunity to do whatever she wants, and so she starts treating her like dirt, and she decides to run away. Now, I think it's amazing that she's running away with not the promised seed. She's running away with the seed that was made out of human ingenuity. You know, they tried to figure this plan out. And yet God comes to her and not only offers her his love and his kindness and his mercy, but he says, I will make a great nation out of your child. But then he tells her to go back and submit to Sarah's abuse, which again tells us that God is not about your happiness.
No.
He's about redeeming people. And so he says, go back and submit yourself to her abuse, but I'm going to make this great nation.
The hardest part for Americans.
The hardest part for Americans, right. And then when they get back, it tells us later on in this next chapter that Abraham circumcised Ishmael along with himself and all the other ones. So when I look at this picture here, this picture is that God has never excluded anyone from the redemption that he offers. Mm-hmm. There's not been one person that's ever been excluded. People exclude themselves because they do not want to follow the truth of who Jesus Christ is.
I find it loaded, though, because it's like Charlie Wilson's War and the Chinese boy and the horse. We'll see. Like, yes, he gave them a great nation, but it's the Muslim nation.
It is, but you know what? They are just as redeemable as any other nation.
That's right.
They are. But, I don't know. I guess I see some irony there, or
because what's funny about that is I agree,
judgment.
But like I look at now this is just me, but I look at the American nation, and I say we are just as crooked and just as evil as the Muslim. Mm-hmm. And I know people don't want to agree with that because we seem to have clothed it in
No. We all listen in an equality sense. We're all sinners, right?
And bad sinners, like horrible,
like horrible sinners,
like depraved mind.
Yeah, right. I don't know. That'll be another topic for a different Friday.
It will be.
I don't think I'm on board with that.
But this is why I love talking about the exclusivity of Jesus, because in talking about the exclusivity of Jesus and who he is, it brings to light that he has longed to include everyone in his kingdom. Not leave one out. It's not his will that any should perish, right, Ralph?
Right.
But if we could get a little Calvinist,
yeah.
Can
you bring some Calvinism in here, Ralph?
Well, what I'm saying, I'm going to say, if we can get a little Calvinist, maybe he made certain peoples to be part of the bad part of his plan.
So that's not Calvinist. That's like the New Age Calvinist, by the way. Anyway,
Neo-Calvinist.
So no, like, yeah, because honestly, like, you get like the 12 pointers and all these different levels of Calvinism. They take it way too far. It's not like it's not the intent of John Calvin, the original. Just like Darwinism, right? Darwinism is not the same thing as this evolution that's taught either. Darwin was more of an adaptationist. I'm not saying he's correct. I'm just saying like people take it too far, right? So I do think that there is a thing called limited atonement, but it's not because of God's desire for everyone to be saved or not, because God does desire everyone to be saved, but he also knows that not everyone will choose to serve him, that not everyone will choose to love him, and those people are not atoned. So it is a limited atonement, right? Because if God's blood covers all sin, then all people would be saved, and all people are not saved. So there is a limited atonement unless everyone goes to heaven. But that's not even actually where I was going to go with this. When Brian was talking about the exclusivity of or that no one's excluded, right? Yeah. It does make me think about verses like when Moses went to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh finally did change his heart and said, "Okay, your people can go." And then I gotta look this up. I don't know exactly where it's at, but it says God hardened his heart. Mm-hmm. So like God hardened Pharaoh's heart after he had, decided to let his people go. So there's something there. Like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's my thought is if you look at that entire progression, the earlier times where Pharaoh was, where God brought Moses to Pharaoh and said, let my people go, Pharaoh actually, there were several times where Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Mm-hmm. And then God hardened his heart because of that. And so I don't know where you want to draw the line. Of course, there will be people who will try to get into the grammar of that and say, no, Pharaoh did it first. No, God did it first. I think the studies I've seen is that Pharaoh began the process of hardening his own heart, and then God hardened it after that, which, in my opinion, even the hardening of a heart, when God hardens a heart, it's not like he comes down and says, you are not going to be saved. It's that God brings experiences into a person's life, and like the New Testament says, their conscience becomes seared like as with a hot iron, because they will not accept what God desires for their lives, and they become hardened, meaning their conscience becomes more and more seared where they can't even see the truth anymore. That's my concept of Pharaoh all the way into the New Testament.
Yeah.
Jim, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, excuse me. Well, I was thinking more like when God, when Jesus made the new covenant, he said he made it with many.
Yeah. Right.
All right. He didn't say all.
Right.
And if you go back to Daniel 9, where some people try to say it's the Antichrist that's making the covenant, but it's obvious when Gabriel came, his focus was on the Messiah. So I look at that as the covenant that God made, or that the angel Gabriel was talking about, is the covenant that Jesus brought with many, and that's brought out in the fact that when Jesus entered into the new covenant, he entered it with many.
Yeah.
Okay, so. And I think that's a quote in Daniel 9, which let me just read that. I think it's really a quote of Daniel 9 in Hebrews chapter 9. Hebrews 9 and
verse 27, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you could read. Let's see. Where am I? Yeah, he then would have had to suffer often since the foundation of the world, but now, once at the end of the ages, he has appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. And as it is appointed men to die once, but after this the judgment, so Christ was offered once to bear the sins of many. Do you see?
Yeah.
So that ties in with the covenant in Matthew 26, the covenant that Jesus is making, the new covenant,
Right.
with what Gabriel said in Daniel 9.
What verse is that, Jim?
That's Hebrews 9, 26 through 27.
Oh, Hebrews. Okay. Gotcha.
Okay. But it appears to me, at least, that this is a direct quote to Daniel 9. See?
Okay.
That that Gabriel was saying that when the Messiah comes, he's going to make a covenant with many. Do you see?
Yeah.
And it has to do with the sacrifice and the offering. Those two words are brought out in Daniel 9:27. Okay?
Yeah, and this is interesting because this is, Jim, where you said that most people think that this is speaking of Antichrist making a covenant. So in 9:27 of Daniel, it says, and he will make a firm covenant with the many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offerings.
Start that over again.
Okay.
And he is not in the Hebrew.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, so it just, and will make a firm covenant.
With many.
Okay.
So that's referring to who? He, who? You go back to who's the focus of...
The subject is Messiah.
Messiah, exactly.
Wow. Okay.
Was your mind just blown?
Yeah, it was. When. All right, I just want to go back to... You said Hebrews chapter 9, right?
Right.
Sins for many.
And Matthew 26.
Yeah.
And even, here's something to think about. Isaiah talks about this in Isaiah 53, that he made many righteous.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't say he made them all righteous.
Right.
He said many. And Isaiah was written before Daniel.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
So Daniel may, well, he actually is getting it from the angel, Gabriel.
Okay.
So Gabriel obviously must have relayed that to Isaiah 100 or so years before he talked to Daniel about it. Do you see?
Yeah.
So in Isaiah 53, many will be made righteous.
Right.
So that many is picked up then in Daniel 9.
Now that is a good point. And so Ralph, you would say that the idea of many, because it's not his will that any should perish, the many is that he knows that some aren't going to choose. So when he says many, he's specifically talking about the ones that will choose to follow him, and he will make them righteous. He will save them. Is that what you're saying, Ralph?
Right, because he not only foreknew, he also predestined.
Right. And
Well-
in John 1:14, is it? He said, as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become sons of God. So in my opinion, that's the many, those that receive him.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So it could be...
I'd agree with that.
It could be anybody, from any,
Right.
any religion or...
And again, so if you look back, like he's not into calling the Muslims his people. He's not into calling Americans his people.
Exactly.
Those who
He
Receive him.
Those who receive
Do
him.
you see?
He's into calling the elect.
So,
Well, he is. But the elect are those who will receive him.
right. And remember, we're all dead in our trespasses and sin until we hear the good news.
Right.
Do you see?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who it is.
Right.
It's the many that do
Yeah.
to receive him.
So then let me ask you this. This is getting a little off topic, and maybe we can
Yeah, we are.
we can throw this in another thing. But
Sorry about that.
But Ralph, this is what I've struggled with my whole time in following Jesus. Is what we're talking about here. I am in total agreement of everything we're saying, but I got to admit there's a mystery there that I don't understand, because when I look at people, I go, well, why did I choose to receive him and someone else didn't? Like, why does it make sense to me that he is the way, the truth, and life, and it doesn't make sense to someone else? And of course, the neo-Calvinist or whatever would say, well, that's because God chose you and didn't choose them, and there doesn't matter what they do, they'll never come to the faith.
But they should keep trying.
But they should keep trying, yeah. And so, how do you work that out in your own mind? Anybody?
Free will.
So,
I mean, that's what
Yeah.
he took a big chance.
He did.
You see, when he said, well, you decide.
Right.
He-
But that's what's so strange to me, because I'm like, why do I decide and someone else doesn't? That's just so strange to me.
See, I don't question that. I go,
Oh, really?
yeah, I made it. You didn't.
Yeah, I see. I get you. You'll be around with the Pharisees over there. Go ahead, Ralph.
So I will say this is where I consider myself a classical Calvinist, right? Because from the readings I've had of John Calvin, he did not throw away the idea of free will, where I think most Calvinists today do.
7-point Calvinists have.
Even a lot of the fives throw it away, right? So I don't think you can't biblically say that free will is non-existent, just like you can't biblically say that predestination is non-existent. They're both found in the Bible. They're both supported very often. I mean, you can choose not to believe it, but it's still there, right? So as an early believer, when I was young, I really struggled with this for like a super long time. And I said, okay, here's my my contradiction in the Bible, the one thing that's going to really make me question everything. And I think as I was studying it, it was kind of like I was hanging over this ledge and I had two ropes in my hand, and one was free will and the other one was predestination. And like as I'm reading the Bible and I'm seeing more stuff on predestination, I let go of the idea of free will, and this rope I'm holding on to just starts falling towards this pit. So then I grab onto the free will and I start studying the free will, and I see that there's so much truth in the Bible about free will. So I let go of predestination and the rope starts falling and I start going into this pit. And I found out that I had to hold on to both as biblically true. And I think like our understanding is limited. We just see these two ropes. We don't know why they're falling, but up above like our level of understanding, they're actually the same rope. They're connected. And that's like the knowledge of God. Like we don't have to understand how everything works for it to be true. And I think, verses like God foreknew, therefore he predestined. He knows who's going to pick. He knows. So that's your elect right there. He knows who's going to choose him, and he is going to, make sure that you're a part of his plan. That doesn't mean that he forces others to not be saved. And it doesn't mean that we don't still have free will and we're responsible for our actions, even though we're going to be saved because he knew it was going to happen since before we were born.
Yeah, okay, so this points to the idea of infinity. Mm-hmm. Like God always is and always was. If you're not bound by time, then you're free to move wherever you want on the scale that we call time. Mm-hmm. And so we're not going to understand how God knows, but yet we still have the free will to choose.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, and so I'm right with you, Ralph. We found something we really agree on in all your liberalism here.
Yeah.
Because we have this individual who goes to our church. I've gone round and round with him a few times because he was a Calvinist and then he isn't a Calvinist. And I'm like, well, you kind of have to have both. I mean, there's a reason why both lines of thought came from the Bible, and it's because they're both there. And it's exactly what Ralph was saying. We're not going to understand how to put them together.
Yeah.
And it's another big concept like the Trinity. Like we can explain it, and we come to a point where we feel comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But sometimes when the person asks that question that really wants you to drill down on it, sometimes you're just like, I have to step out in faith and know this is how it works.
Yeah, and when I knew everything, I was about 25.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a good time to know everything.
Yeah. And I was talking with a pastor. He was an evangelist. He'd come to the church we were at in Florida when I was in Bible college there, and I was talking to him about Calvinism, Arminianism, and he just looked at me and he said, you know what? He said, men smarter than us have debated this for years. And he said, but at the end of the day, he said, Calvinism and Arminianism are a hair's breadth away from each other. Mm-hmm. They are so close in what they are actually trying to teach, but yet they divide themselves because they want to argue over these little minuscule things that we don't fully understand. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of left it at that, and I grew over the years, and then I realized how much I don't know, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But what do you say then? I mean, I know it's a little late here, but what do you say then to the guy or the girl who says, well, then if God knows ahead of time whether I'm going to choose or not, because this is really hard. I've had conversations with individuals. If God already knows, then why should I even try to be saved? Why should I even try? Because obviously if I'm going to, I'm going to. If I'm not, I'm not.
Well, because you still have the free will choice.
So what they're doing is they're being deceived into thinking that they don't have any or shouldn't take any responsibility in this thing. Am I right? They're being deceived by the enemy to think they have no responsibility in their salvation.
Yeah, but then if you're going to take it that far, then you have no responsibility to do anything in life, like make your bed, wash your dishes. Why do we do those things? Why do we wash our car? Why do we, why do we organize things? Mm-hmm. It's just going to fall apart again.
Right.
So let's not organize at all. And really, it just makes you slothful.
Right, yeah.
7 deadly sins.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And one of them is sloth.
So you have to participate. Yeah. If you I don't know how that's illogical to me. That's like saying, well, it's already figured out. I guess I won't go. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Seems lazy.
Who was the guy in Winnie Pooh that walked around like
Eeyore.
that? Eeyore.
I guess my life is over.
He's either gonna pick for me or he's not.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good stuff today. I'll tell you what. If
We hit all the major conundrums of the Bible in one day.
we did, and if anybody's listening to this podcast today or does listen to it in the future,
There was half a dozen.
listen, man, you've got to investigate the person of Jesus.
Amen.
You cannot take this lightly, and if you're going to not believe, then I would say at least give 110% to investigate the person of Jesus. And then if you decide you don't want to believe, okay, fine. But don't just go based on what you hear, because once you start to investigate who this person Jesus is, I don't think you cannot believe.
Amen.
I don't know.
No, that's how I see it. And I've said it forever and ever and ever. I mean, people who when life actually gets hard, I don't know how people can't believe.
Right.
Like when you got to deal with something. Like I don't know how people deal with things, and that's
Right.
that when it's hard. But then to see in the easy parts too, like it's almost my mind goes like white fuzz.
Right.
That there are people that don't understand this concept.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's like cooking. You know, I've cooked for so long that when people walk into the kitchen and they don't know how to boil water, I'm like, what,
Yeah,
seriously?
what do you do? How do you
What is wrong
not?
with you?
How do you not get this?
You know?
Yeah.
Or I'm like at the house the other night for prayer group, you know, and I'm tossing things because in the kitchen you learn you don't use spatulas. You
That
toss
does
things.
blow my mind.
Yeah, well, it blows people that haven't done it, but for someone that's done it and someone who knows it,
It's just what you
it's
do.
second nature.
Yeah.
So to me, this Jesus thing is second nature, and I get it when people they don't know a lot of this stuff. They're like, but I'm telling you, you've got to investigate. I almost went down the trail of believing that Jesus and Buddha and Muhammad
the
and all
same.
these guys could be on the same level.
Yeah.
And once I started investigating Jesus, they're not on the same level.
No.
Not even close.
Ralph, final thoughts? Oh, your sound is crazy. We always hear is fuzz. Turn your microphone off and on or something.
He's going to try it.
Just turn the mic off and on.
I think I heard something click. He might be back in.
Oh, no.
Gone.
Why does it do that?
I don't know.
Up, he's back.
Yeah, his face is...
Try now.
I'll tell you what, Ralph. Just call my phone. Or call Matt's phone. And we'll just bring you in real quick for your final
For your
thought.
final thought. You sound like fuzz.
Because we can't leave without your final thought, Ralph. Uneducated would not be uneducated.
Just call my phone and I'll put you up to the mic.
He's calling. Are you calling? Are you calling, Ralph?
Be dialing. Ralph, use your phone, dude.
It's like you can't hear. Oh, he took his earbuds out. That's why. Can you hear us, Ralph? Call.
Oh, he can't see us. Hold on.
Oh, hold on. All right. Tell him to call then. Call.
Well, this phone works both ways.
Oh, yeah. I guess you could call him. Jim, this is what we deal with every week.
Always something. Always something.
Is he on every week?
He's pretty regular.
He's pretty regular for
that's
the while.
good.
Yeah. He's out in California.
Yeah, I know. That's interesting.
Yeah, we like Ralph. It's hard to get him to stay on.
Hey.
Hey, I don't know if my computer's like 12 years old. It's really starting to go downhill quick.
Do you want us to see if we can, with our budget money from Uneducated, we can get you a new one?
I don't think you have any budget money.
Sure.
We don't, but that's why I offered.
No, we do.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, I'm on the board. We can get this done.
Okay. All right. Maybe we'll get you one.
Sweet. Could you do it before Monday? That's when my new class starts for college.
Tell you what, you act like this is predestined or something. If we would have
You
known,
should give me that money.
if we would have known this was going to happen, we could have had it ready. But we're not like God or anything.
All right, give us your final thoughts here, Ralph.
So I guess I was just trying to say that I don't know. I guess I really like this topic. I would like to say so next on next Friday, I'm actually going to be in Seattle to celebrate my favorite holiday.
What's that? Oh, Halloween.
The Seahawks win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mm-hmm. But would you guys want to take a 1 week hiatus to talk about the importance of the Reformation?
Next week?
Yeah, it's Halloween weekend next week.
We can do that. That's Hallows Eve.
Wait, are you gonna be here or not be here?
Well, it depends. I'm gonna be in Seattle, but I should be able to log on as long as there's good internet at the hotel.
Seattle.
Okay. Well, yeah, we could. So you want to talk about All Saints Day?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, not All Saints Day, but Reformation Day.
Okay. That's 1517, October 31st. Martin Luther's 95 Thesis on the doors of Wittenberg, right?
And he's like, you can't buy your cousin into heaven.
That's right. I mean, I don't want to get off topic, but that is like my favorite holiday.
Okay. Are we going to talk at all about the fact that Martin Luther, towards the end of his life, was an anti-Semite?
I don't know. I don't know why.
We can. I mean,
why is that bad?
So he had dementia, so I don't think that negates all the work he did, honestly. But we can talk about that.
All right. No, we'll stick to that. But if it comes up, we'll see.
I don't know why a person can't have problems and we gotta throw them away.
I agree.
You just went woke on Martin Luther right now.
I agree. That's why I did it. Because everybody's going to bring it up. Well, wait a minute. You can't believe anything Martin Luther said.
You got to throw everything out.
Throw everything out with the bathwater. Yeah.
That's like I still have my Ravi Zacharias marriage counseling book.
Oh, really? His marriage counseling book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? In there he says husbands should get a massage every once in a while.
No, he does not. No, he does not.
Does he?
Yeah.
No, he doesn't.
It's in chapter 4.
No, it's not. He doesn't even have a marriage counseling book. I'll tell you what, though, I do still have some of his apologetics work is some of the best around. I'll tell you that, whether people throw him under the bus or not. Which
I'm just poking fun. All right, are we gonna end this thing?
We are. So next week is Reformation. You want to do that?
Yeah.
If that's okay with everyone.
I'm fine with that, and then we'll come back to Jesus.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll elevate Martin Luther and. Because he had a lot to say about Jesus, too, so we'll go with that.
I thank you guys.
All right. Well,
okay.
Ralph, you
God
have a great...
bless.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim, for being here.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Jim.
you.
It's always a ton of fun having you here. Insightful.
And those of you that are fans of Jim, he may be back more than you know, right, Jim?
Yeah, it comes now. We got a real studio.
Yeah.
And everything went off without a hitch today.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Uh-huh.
And I think Jim's liking this comfy couch, this orange couch.
Yes, this is very nice. Really nice.
All right. Well, till next week.
Till next week. Have a good one.
Go ahead. You finish out your thought.
Well, we got an error report.